Hey all, welcome to the Export Fundas podcast. With me today is Dr. Jagat Shah, and all of you know this is last week in exports. We are live every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Jagatji, again, I don't know if it is just me or actually in the past you've had so much news happening in exports every single week. But my god, every week is just jam packed with newer and newer updates coming on exports. Jagatji, is this new or it's always been like this?
No, it's been like this, but yeah, I mean, last 3 months has been just unbelievable, particularly from India's point of view. Last week there were 36 relevant stories. This week there are 48, right? But of course we can't cover all, but we will cover the best of those. But yes,
Right.
so as I said last time, every week looks more exciting than the last week.
So, guys, we have a jam packed session for you. 11 selected stories with which Dr. Jagat feels all of you should know about in last week of exports. Let's get started. The very first one, Jagatji, I think pretty much every week we are just, I think we should start doing a victory lap every week for this news, which is US Courts of International Trade strikes down the 10% tariff on India as unlawful. Jagaji, I mean, this is coming one after another. You had said repeatedly on the show, on your social handles, on WhatsApp, and even in person when you did sessions, that as a supplier, don't reduce one penny also. And
Correct.
whoever listened to you must be very happy. Please tell us what happened.
Yeah, so even this 10% tariff has been declared unlawful by the court in US, and that is by a 2-1 ruling, and that was under the section 122 conditions, and they said section 122 conditions don't meet. I mean, they are not met in this. So companies have started getting refund already, right? And if you are exporting, if you have been exporting to US under that, you must talk to your importer because they are supposed to get the refund, and you can also see how you will benefit. And very interesting, Nikhil, 25 US states, 25 US states have sued to block the US tariffs on India and 59 other partners. So it is the state, it is not only like an individual level, like it is the states also who have come into this, right? And they call that section 301 forced labor duties unlawful and want them to be refunded, right? And Amazon got $600 million, $600 million refund and of the US import duties. After the Supreme Court struck down the EPA tariffs in February, which is the International Emergency Economic Powers Act tariff, right? And Apple, then Walmart, then General Motors, they've all applied for the refunds, right? And Indian exporters, if your buyer has paid duty under the EPA on your shipment, they should be able to claim it back. And then I always said don't reduce price, but in case you have reduced per price with an understanding that when it gets reversed, then you should talk to them and see that whatever benefit you can get out of it. So this is a big news, and every time some new non-trade barrier is being created in US, but every time, I mean, fortunately, that's the judiciary is a very strong pillar of democracy, and I think that is playing its role in US.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let's move on to the next story, uh, which is Goyal's $2 trillion export machine. So Ministry of Commerce reviewed the plan to get to $2 trillion US export target. Jagatji, your thoughts?
Yeah, Nikhil. So this is plan for to reach that by 2030-31 financial year, and $1 trillion will come from merchandise exports and 1 trillion from services. But like I have said many times, I think maximum in 2 years, even maybe next year, our services export will surpass merchandise export. So let's see. So 1 trillion is expected to be from both sides. Now, what is interesting is that the sectors, various sectors have got a nodal joint secretary, and who will track on an IT enabled platform. Right now, AI is also being used to track not only monthly but day to day. Even I would say, I mean, I'm sure they will soon go hour to hour, mapping of what is happening with our exports. So, but something, Nikhil, uh, on one side, government of India is creating a positive ecosystem for entrepreneurs to take advantage of the free trade agreement. But you will be surprised, hardly 30% of the eligible exporters have used the free trade agreement preference in their shipment documentation, because they do not know the rules of origin, they do not know the paperwork, there is low MSME awareness, and these are the barriers. So, on one side, free trade agreement is there, but on another side, it is not being utilized. So, there is a strong need to educate industries in a big way. And one of the interesting steps I think this week has come is the market access support now extends beyond export promotion councils. I think export promotions councils in India have done a good job, but they are overstretched. The kind of growth which exports is showing, you cannot have a few councils taking care of the whole thing. So I think it has moved, the market access support has moved beyond export promotion councils. So for example, government recognized industry and trade associations will also qualify to take benefit. Chambers of commerce like FICCI, CIA, SOCHM, which are national, PhD chamber. Then state export promotion agencies of the state level, state industrial development bodies, district export hubs, then MSME associations, sector specific. There are a lot of sector specific associations in India. Farmer producer organization, huge opportunity for the agriculture export through cooperatives. Then government recognized institutions organizing trade fairs, buyer seller meet, reverse buyer seller meet, trade delegations, and so all of these will now be able to take advantage. And I think under this $2 trillion, the free trade agreements were reviewed, and some very interesting things I think has come up is number one is quality led brand India exports. So quality number one, number two, better logistics, number three, wider market access, and the focus is on MSMEs and first time exporters. These first time exporters is something very interesting, and there are some incentives now for first time exporters, which also most of the MSMEs don't know.
Wow. So, I mean, guys, I think this is something which Jagati speaks about a lot as well. You've got to start taking advantage of this. Let's move on to our next story. A new Red Sea Express every 20 days. Jagatji, the Italian liner. Again, it's difficult for me to pronounce this. Ignazio Messina is adding
Yeah.
a Red Sea Express service. So, can you tell us a bit more about this?
Yeah, so now see, all the shipping is very disturbed, right? 5 times some of the freight rates have gone up. So this disturbs trade, right? So I think this Ignazio Messina, the Italian liner, they are starting Navasheva to Sohar and to Jeddah every 20 days. So that will be give a good relief to Indian exporters. But we have to see the freight rates. And the first selling is on 27th of August. Under that, so we should see what happens then. And new capacity. So this will add new capacity on the India Gulf Red Sea corridor. While the West Asia freights stay disrupted, hopefully, and so that this type of see, I have always said in all my talks, I always say every adversity creates opportunity, right? So this is an opportunity, because shipping companies will also try to see that how we can introduce new services and new mechanisms.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm not surprised. I won't be surprised if a lot more announcements come in the next few days regarding this. So not just the Italian liners, but I'm sure a lot of other companies will be looking at these routes.
Correct.
Moving on, Jagaji, so $1 billion sitting on the UK table. The Indian UK FTA could open almost $1 billion in just textile exports, incremental textile exports. Jagaji, your thoughts?
Correct. So because of the free trade agreement with UK, I mean, see, currently India holds about, like, say, 7% of the total UK textile import market. That's it, 7%. So even if that, so that there is a huge opportunity there, and a 3 point share gain is worth $900 million. So exporters with UK ready compliance stand to gain. So anybody who is already shipping to UK or is planning or you know uh, is ready with the compliance part of it, they should take advantage of this in a big way. And again, as I said, documentation, paperwork, rules of the origin, country of origin, these are something they should educate themselves. Nikhil, you will recall in every program I say, make knowledge the raw material of your business. Yarn is a raw material in textile, dyes is a raw material. Is knowledge raw material? So if exporters do not know uh, how to do documentation to take free trade agreement benefit, then that benefit will not come. So that is the knowledge part of business.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's move on to our next story, which is China. China's US share has halved. So what am I talking about? Basically, China's share of US apparel imports has almost halved in a decade. What is going on here, Jagaji?
Yes, that's true. And you know, that leaves about 20% of the US market open to India and other suppliers,
Right.
right? And textile exporters have a window while US buyers are diversifying. So US buyers have been diversifying since pandemic, but of late, uh, quite aggressively, right? So the retailer ordering in US is now back after the inventory normalization, because because of those duties and all, additional duties of 50% and all, it was all disturbed, but it has now normalized. And for textile exporters in India, the sourcing shift window is open, and it's an opportunity to grab fast. More and more companies should take part in exhibitions in US, visit US, appoint agents, try to also set up e-commerce portals there, uh, not only in aggregators but even as a standalone. And the Prime Minister's, Mitra Park, there is a scheme of Mitra Park, and the man-made fibers support could also help India to capture that market. So this is something which our Indian entrepreneur has to show more aggression.
Absolutely, absolutely. I feel, having met a few entrepreneurs as well, I actually wanted to ask you a related topic. Is very few of our entrepreneurs actually have that aggression to go after these markets. Any idea why, Jagaji? Any observation from your side, or it's just a feeling
Nikhil,
I'm getting?
no, Nikhil, you see, traditionally India has been a big market. I mean, India is a
Okay,
large population, right? So if you
right,
say, I always say roti, kapda, makan, padhai, dawai, right? So anything
right.
with food, textile, building material, education, healthcare is always a growing market in India because it's connected to the population growth. So companies have always been looking to India as a market, but at the same time, my logic is always that India is a 4.4 trillion economy and world is a 126 trillion economy. So that outward looking approach has not come, but the younger generation today, particularly in family owned businesses, the younger generation who went out to study, who did bachelor's masters abroad and have come back to join family businesses, they are very aggressive. And that they also, when they join the business, initially there is a tussle, because their earlier generation, has done business in a different way, which was right way when they were in business, but now times have changed, right? So yeah, I mean that it is a mindset that, to look at export market. And what also happens, Nikhil, is, you know people hear stories. Oh, iska paisa phas gaya. Oh, that this transaction, but that is one out of 100 cases, because the 99 cases who have been successful never talk about it, right? So that one case gets talked about, so then everybody becomes cautious. But there are a lot of protection available. ECGC is there, government of India has created a mechanism of protecting your payment, so knowledge again plays a role. And Indian entrepreneurs should become more aggressive, particularly the younger generation.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the next story. I mean, I've been waiting for more news related to this. It's also related to some initiatives you have, Jagaji, but India's ready to eat food export has risen by 16% to $2.4 billion in FY 2026. And the crazy part is, I feel even now just targeting the Indian diaspora, not going after the local market. I feel the local market will have an incredible taste for our food. Jagaji, your thoughts?
Yeah, true, true. In fact, like we are organizing this Global Food Pro
Yeah.
2027 in Bengaluru from
Yeah.
13 to 15 May to next year, and
Right.
food is the focus in that. And you know, one interesting thing, in spite of this, fast growth, the US has stayed largest market for India at around $205 million, right? And again, in that US, 80% of that is the Indian diaspora, right? Which we need to actually You can imagine that Indian diaspora is hardly 5% population, even less. And if we are at, 2.2 products by 35%, and therefore for the food processors, you know, just to give you a, timeline, is the growth lines are, for example, pasta, right? Biscuits, papad, coffee, tea. These are going to be the highest growing food sector business ready to eat. So who are in these businesses should, look at US market and take part in exhibitions, go visit, meet a lot of companies, stock there. West is stock there. Take the risk. If you feel you have a good quality product, take the risk, stock it, and it will be easy to sell, because you can do next day delivery, you can do quality check. Companies can do quality check and buy, and payment rotation will become faster, and the companies will get better profit. In fact, they can make more money by stocking than the money they will make in product, because stocking is a service, right?
Absolutely. And you've also mentioned in the past that the government has also is setting up warehouses. Take advantage of that.
Yes, correct,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So let's move on. Coffee. Jagatji, let's talk about coffee. You touched a bit upon coffee. Coffee Board has launched an app for EUDR registration. The deforestation rule exporters must clear to sell in the EU. Can you educate us a bit on what's going on here?
Yeah, so this has been going for 100 years, right? And every time, uh, I have seen that the developed countries, they always come out with some kind of a certification. Now they have come out with European Union's Deforestation Regulation Information System. Deforestation Regulation Information System, right? EUDR. So this deforestation rule, exporters must clear to sell in the EU, and it is also similar to the CBAM, European Union Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. So, what is happening, I think, with all these initiatives is that it is just creating more, it is just adding more cost to doing business, number one. Of course, at the end of the day, it is the customer in that country who will pay the cost. But also, maybe it is in line with the commitments nations have done on climate change. and most of the developed countries are also interested that their population should get good food and all. So it is important that the companies should understand, the registration under this has to be done latest by December 2026. And just to share with you, European Union countries buy 54% of India's coffee. So, half of
Wow.
the exports of India is there, and so unregistered growers risk losing that market if they do not register under the EUDR. So it's an important thing, and again, um, you know, the app, I don't know how it works. I will get to know within 10 days, but we should do more and more of this type of you know regulation compliance through uh, AI tools and app based tools, so that it is very comfortable for Indian exporters to register directly from phone or computer.
Absolutely. Understood. So, Jagatji, the next story, very interesting story, which is need of the hour, I would say. India's first sovereign backed maritime insurance product is live. I mean, I think this was desperately needed to get some semblance of stability for a lot of Indian exporters. Your thoughts on this, Jagatji?
Yeah, so ever since the Ukraine war started, and then I mean, before Gaza war, and now the Iran, which is a kind of an extension of the Gaza situation, I think the war risk insurance has gone up, and but this the government of India has started a Bharat Maritime Insurance Pool, which is called BMIP cover, right? And already 1,600 policies have already been issued, and particularly to the exporters on the West Asia route. So if you should ask your insurance company that they should give you a cover under BMIP. So that will reduce the cost, because you know the fact remains that whenever any cost goes up, generally it should be passed on to the importer, but many a times Indian exporter particularly get scared that they may lose the business, so they also kind of absorb some of these additional costs at the cost of reducing their profit. So with this initiative, so time and again you will observe, Nikhil, that wherever there is a pain point, yeah, particularly in the export community and export ecosystem, government has come out regularly with solutions. So as entrepreneur, it is also our duty that to not only take advantage of this, but be aggressive in export markets.
Absolutely. And another thing I would say is, I mean, what I can tell you, at least from an external observer, seeing how the way other countries have reacted, is Indian government seems to be coming off as a very mature professional government in this entire scenario, trying to just make sure that business does not stop. I mean, correct me
Correct.
if I'm wrong, Jagachi.
Yes, it is true, because let me tell you, in my 27 years of career in international business, I have never ever come across such volatile situation which we are going through now in international trade. And in spite of that, our exports is growing, in spite of everything which is being thrown at us, including higher prices of petroleum, and the additional duties and the non-trade barriers, and but still, so it is I would say it is a success of both, not only the government which is creating the ecosystem, but also the entrepreneur. I will give credit that the exports which are growing is also because of the entrepreneur, right? So India, interestingly, in India, the center of the Indian economy is the entrepreneur, right? In China, for example, the center of Chinese economy is the state, right? But when a state is the center of economy, that is not a sustainable model, right? Only when entrepreneur is the center and of economy, and it's a market driven economy, only that in long run is sustainable. So we will see, but it's a good initiative of Bharat Maritime Insurance Pool.
Wonderful. Let's move on to our next story, which is steel is up 27%. So Indian steel export has risen by 27% in the first half. I mean, please tell me, even this is without, the European Union's involvement as well. So Jagachi, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so this is the first half, that is January to June 2026, and Indian companies found new buyers outside the European Union. So that is something very encouraging, because we have always been focusing, particularly in steel, on the European market. So there is a 30% uh, new market has been found in non-EU, and like for example, shipment to Vietnam has jumped from just from point zero one million tons to 0.65 million metric tons. Zero point zero 0.01, mind you. So this is an example, and UK demand has grown because of the held by the free trade agreement big time, and Indian steel makers are shifting focus to Southeast Asia and the Middle East. So that is a good diversion, and it is encouraging. So we hope this trend continues and we find more and more markets, because you will be surprised, almost 70% of India's export is hardly to 15 countries. So we have to diversify markets, uh, so that whenever any one particular country acts up, like it's been happening of late, then our eggs are spread in more baskets. So that itself is a our great grandfather from that time has been telling us, never put all your eggs in one basket. So you know
Yeah.
it's a ancestral wisdom we have. So this is good development in steel exports.
So the next one is something I personally follow quite a bit because there's a lot of manufacturing happening near Bangalore itself for these smartphones. But Indian smartphone exports have hit $9.84 billion. Jagaji, before you tell your thoughts on this, India just a few years back was a net importer of smartphones. And whatever level processing is going on here, the fact that there is clear bill that $9.84 billion worth of smartphones have been exported from India to other countries. I mean, I feel how in the automotive sector in the 1980s and 90s, the investments in Maruti and all paid off with a vibrant automotive ecosystem which we have in India today. This is going to pay off in big way in the next few decades. I don't know why the government doesn't want to market this fact. You have to tell me, Jagaji. Very rarely you get to hear this kind of news on X. But please tell me, like, what's going on? How the hell did we have this turnaround, and how are we exporting so much?
Yeah, so Nikhil, interesting. So, yeah, you are right. In 2014, 98% of smartphones, in fact, 100%, 100%, I think, data is 98%. I am wondering which 2% used to come from India, right? 100% of smartphones were imported in India. And today,
Right,
0% import. In fact, we are exporting. And this
right,
$9.84 billion you are talking about is just only the quarter one
right,
of 2026, that is April to June 2026, right?
right,
And
right.
this is up by 23% compared to last year. And
Mm-hmm.
most of the people, a lot of people say, oh yeah, iPhone, oh yeah, Apple, so but we are still importing components. Yes, we are importing components,
So what?
but it's same like automotive, what you said, what Maruti Suzuki did to India, I think iPhone, Apple will do to India. And
Right.
so now let me share something in that direction. Number one, 70, see this 9.84 billion, 75% is iPhone, but
Hmm.
there is 25% non-iPhone, right? Which every year is growing by
Right.
25%.
Right.
So of the value, and US took 71% of these shipments. So again, iPhone we understand, but then 29% of the shipment has gone to non-US, right?
Right.
So that's very encouraging. And see, the example of from 2014 to now is the Make in India program and the PLI scheme in electronics, right?
Right.
The production
Which
linked in.
is now coming in other sectors. What they did with PLI is now
Yes,
slowly coming into
yes.
other sectors.
So it's this is the first huge success. And for small exporters, what is happening is the supply chain is scaling fast. The way the supply chain scaled fast in automotive because of the Suzuki partnership, the same way in
Mm,
electronics in relation to the smartphone, the
mm,
supply chain is scaling very fast, and the
mm,
small MSME is a part of that supply chain, right?
mm.
And so electronic component makers should take note of this growth and take advantage of it. And I hope we get PLI scheme in every sector in India because it's a very practical. Of course, now there has been some challenges raised in WTO
Mm.
vis-a-vis PLI, but I'm confident that government would have done their homework before launching, and they would be able to handle the objections which have come, and it should be rolled out to every sector.
So I have, one of the points you raised, Jagaji, was the naysayers telling, "K, oh, components are not made in here." I mean, where you have to start somewhere, no?
Of course, of course.
Like
Yeah.
tomorrow, like, हाँ ठीक है यहाँ से कल से manufacturing यहाँ होगा, but then you can't manufacture the whole thing from tomorrow. It has to start somewhere,
Correct.
and then you build the supply chain slowly, you build the expertise
Yes.
slowly,
Yes.
and we've seen this happen in the automotive space. India has a vibrant automotive ecosystem for this reason.
True. Even in
Yeah,
telecom, even in
yeah,
every sector, insurance, banking, I mean, every sector since our independence, we have seen that trend. So,
yeah. Let's move to the next and last story. Jagat Ji, the Q1 exports has hit $129.5 billion already. It's up 16. So, I mean, there is also a problem which is coming up, right? Which is a freight problem. Can you tell us what's going on here? That's why me and you are sad
yeah.
over here.
No, I think in the picture only two of us are sad. Otherwise, everything is looking good.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. So, yeah, so quarter one export, which is again April to June 2026, 129 billion, it is 16% more than last year. Yeah, again,
Right.
let me repeat, it is in spite of all this Iran war and all the disturbances. So, this is unbelievable. I think if this was not the situation, this would have been 50% more, perhaps. I don't know, right?
Wow.
However, one thing we have to keep in mind is that freight chaos is eating on the profit. So, I speak to a lot of my students. We run the school where we teach small medium business owners on taking their business global. So, my 7,200 students who are exporting, I have been speaking to them, and many of them are absorbing some of these additional freight costs because they say that, so my suggestion to them always is that please ask your buyer that you will quote FOB, Indian port. So some have been successful, some have succumbed under the pressure, but uh, and let me tell you, China got most U.S. Christmas orders. You know why? Not just because of price, but because of the 15-day transit which they have, and India takes 50 days, 50 days transit. The difference is because in the transit, because China often has a direct, high frequency shipping service, while many Indian shipments are routed through one or more transshipment hubs. And so freights for Indian companies have gone up from $1,600 to as much as 5,000 US dollar per container. Now the point
My
is
God.
that this additional freight, who is paying, right? So I have always kept taken a stand that let the importer pay, because have a FOB deal, because wherever the importer buys from India in or even many other countries other than China, they will have to pay that freight, right? And our profit margins are not so much that we can absorb that freight. So we should make sure that we give FOB price and try to work on that. Freight is actual; it's not our profit. It's not, I mean, There's no point to absorb that, and buyer has to absorb. And all the buyers today, a lot of buyers in developed countries are looking to China plus one. So, and they have found India to be a trustworthy supplier. So they will not divert only because of this temporary stage of freight going up. It is we in India, our entrepreneurs, that we get scared that I will lose this business, right?
No, that's
So
because I'll probably tell you why. It's because that's how, if they would be selling to an Indian customer, they would actually end up losing because Indian customers will not leave you. They'll cut down your cost, they'll cut down all your margin. So they'll be scared because of that. They'll have some PTSD with dealing with Indian customers. So Jagaji, please tell them, exports is different.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, export is always different because what I told you, the larger market is $122 trillion economy is
Exactly.
outside India, and outside India people value quality, commitment, delivery period, packaging, you know. So trust has a big role to play. Trust is a very high form of capital, and which we should maintain. And people have trusted India since ages, and it is only that because India was itself a big market, Indian policies were such that companies never looked outside, and the it was always very difficult to export. But now all that has become streamlined, and with lot of new incentives, export promotion mission, and so many things. So I think it's the best time so far I have known in 27 years of my time I have spent on international trade, where Indian entrepreneur, I mean, I think only it will go better than this, but there is a very good situation to look global, because see, the growth will come from export. Okay, see, in India, the Indian market size is fixed, right? And the suppliers are increasing every year, because we are not going to create so many jobs as many people are coming to the job market. So more and more people are getting into entrepreneurship. So the moment they come into entrepreneurship, they will get into trading or manufacturing, and competition is only going to increase. So, but in exports, if you look at any sector, any product, 1,000 companies are there in India, then hardly 50 or 100 would be exporting. So naturally the competition goes down, but the global competition is there. However, India has so many advantages in terms of costs and in terms of innovation. So we must make innovation as our game changer. So I always say that do one thing better than anyone else. That one thing need not be just product related, it can be anything. So that will make you should have some differentiator. There are so many things, and entrepreneurs true worth, I think, is when an entrepreneur is able to do innovation. And for that, an entrepreneur should have time, and that is why it's very important to have delegation of authority and have people, young people particularly, to take care of all your communications and various activities.
Absolutely. And guys, the problem which you as exporter will face even in the freight charges is not limited to only you. Every single exporter in every single country will be facing the same problem. So just
Correct.
because you're worried about loss of business, this is something you had shared, Jagatji, about the duty as well. 3 months,
Yes,
6 months back. Don't
absolutely.
cut your margins. Same thing holds true here. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jagatji.
Absolutely. It's the same whether freight or duty. Both are, factors which has come out because of the geopolitical situation.
Yes. So there you have it, guys. That was your episode on last week of exports. Drop your questions in the chat. We'll try to reply. I see just one live comment. Jagatji, Mr. Ashok Jain is just cheering for you. Jagat for Jagat ke liye. So I'm assuming he's a student and a fan of yours. But
Yeah.
that's all for today's episode. Jagatji, any parting words?
No, I will encourage anyone who watches this our podcast that make knowledge raw material of a business. Use our export fundas channel. Subscribe to YouTube and use it as a source of knowledge, because every week we are giving you updated knowledge. And within a week, if you can take advantage of what is happening in the world, then that is going to benefit your business. and make knowledge the raw material of your business. And this initiative of ours, Nikhil Bansali and myself, through Export Fundas, is in that direction, that let us not just say use knowledge as raw material, let us give knowledge also, so that you can make it a raw material of your business. All the best. See you next week.